In order for us to connect to the database, we need a connection string. And we add it to our app settings JSON. So I'm going to double click app settings.json, and here we will add the connection string. So I'll simply add another property, and this one is going to be called connection strings. It's a standard name to name it as connection strings because you can have multiple databases and with multiple connection strings. So here we will specify our own connection string. We only have one database to connect to, and I'll call this connection string as appdb. So this is the name of my connection string that I am creating. And this appdb connection string will connect to our Northwind database. So here I will specify the server, and that's going to be the local DB. And then I will specify that this is for the MS SQL local DB. Then we have to specify the database name. So I will use database equals, and my database is called Northwind. And I will specify basic security. So it's going to be integrated security to equal true. And that's it. That is our connection string that we are going to be referring to later as appdb. So we created a connection string, but now we actually have to kind of execute it, and that's done in our startup.cs, where we add the connection string to our services. So here we have two methods. We have configure services and configure. In the configure services, we currently have only one service, that's the add controllers with views, which basically adds the MVC to the .NET Core. And now I will specify that I also want to add the connection string into our services. So this is going to be services dot, and we are adding the DB context. And we created a DB context and named it app DB context. And here we will specify that we want to connect to our SQL server. So in the options, I'll use the lambda, and we'll use the options dot use SQL server. And what SQL server we want to use? Well, we want to use the one that's coming from our configuration. So configuration dot, and we are getting the connection string. So that's the get connection string property. And the connection string that we are working with is the appdb. That's the name of our connection string that we created. Now let's close all the parentheses. And this way we added a new service for our connection string to be used with the SQL server. So we have the model, we can connect to the database, and now we can start creating the functionality, how to retrieve the data from the database. So let's start working on the controllers next.